Thanks for tuning into the first ever episode of the True North podcast. Now, as you watch, you are going to see that it is absolutely not perfect whatsoever. You'll see that we're just kind of three guys sitting around talking about whatever, because this initially was never meant to be an episode. It was just supposed to be kind of a test run. So you will see that we're not professionals by any means, but as we continue to go along, we're still going to learn. We're still going to be able to make this better in some way, shape, or form. So please don't judge us off this first episode too harshly. Just sit back, relax. It's supposed to be fun, inspirational. So just enjoy the first episode, and we'll see you next time.
Did it start recording?
Oh, I liked it.
I heard a beep.
Yeah, it's good. It's recording.
It's recording?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Mine has REC on it in red.
Alright, so I'm going to hit this button, record,
Recreational.
and I'm going to clap. So it'll be synced together a lot better. Okay?
Yep.
Anticipation. We're ready for it. He's gonna clap.
You should have warned us, because you're over there just like
We're
this.
just
We're
like, all right, what do we do?
we're just on.
Y'all don't do nothing. Y'all just
I'm
start.
not even gonna watch anymore.
Okay, I'm not even looking at him either.
Okay, y'all just start talking while I do it, okay?
Okay, so are we gonna go with youth group?
I think we
stories
go
from
with
you?
youth
Yeah,
group
yeah,
stories
let's
if you
go
want
with
to
youth
lead
group
up and.
Well, I
start.
gotta lead. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
well, if I can lead.
I mean, it don't matter to me. I guess it don't matter. Was trying to think of one to start
Okay.
off with, because
I got you. So, one of our youth group games.
No, wait, I haven't clapped yet.
Oh my gosh! I'm trying to start talking.
this is so confusing.
I don't know what we're supposed to do.
I feel like I
Okay,
sound.
here we go.
Do I sound weird?
A little bit.
I feel like I sound kind of like fuzzy or something.
That's just your kid. You sound very. What we're talking. That's the crazy
He
part.
loves what we're doing, so he's applauding.
He's like, it's fantastic. We got an
I
in-house
love it.
audience.
This
Yeah,
is great.
People are
I'm
gonna.
gonna take a sip of Sprite, wet my whistle.
Okay, go ahead. Alright, so I
ASMR.
guess we can get started now. So in youth group, one of the things, and we kind of talked about this beforehand, was that we had a truth or dare situation going on, and did multiple different little things. It's like, I think one of them was chew on somebody's sock or something. Just really just grotesquely nasty things that youth do. And one of the things I was dared to do, obviously it was truth or dare. I got dare, and they're like, go eat the mulch outside. And, I'm like, oh, it's wood, no problem.
Wait, red or brown mulch?
Brown mulch.
Oh, dude, if it had been red, you'd been fine. But
I had no idea it was bad. And so I went out there and ate it. I was like, oh, that was nothing. And they were like, you know what mulch is made of? I was like, wood, right? And then they told me that it's made of... So I was like, oh, no. So
I
it's
thought
like,
mulch was just like I thought it was just wood.
Oh, was
like
it just wood?
Like manure is obviously, but I thought mulch was just. Is it
well,
not just
so
wood?
no. So they had treated a certain area with some stuff, and they didn't tell me about it.
They
So-
fertilized.
Yeah, they fertilized it. So yeah, I was like, you dogs, how dare y'all do that to
And
me?
they knew that ahead of
Yeah,
time.
and so now I cringe. But
So they knew it was
It
fertilized,
was
and
in parts-
they let you just do it.
they still
They
did
just
it.
let you do it.
So a completely unrelated thing. I know this is all over the place, but I'd like to bring this up because I about got sick earlier today.
Huh?
So me and Kaylin were doing this thing where, like, I'd be sitting on the couch, she'd run around like I'm a zombie. I'll pick her up and act like I'm eating her, then she'd run around again. Well, so I did it, and I went to go bite her hand, and I was like, Kaylin, why is your hand wet? She goes, oh, I went potty. I was like, oh. So I jumped up real quick, ran in.
I don't guess it's because she
gargled.
washed her hands.
I brushed my teeth real quick. I was like, this is disgusting. I'm gonna die. And
I was
so-
hoping you were going to be. Luckily, she just washed her hands. So it
No,
was-
no. So I got up and tried not to gag and explained to my, 4-year-old, it's like, why are you dying right now? It's like, oh, no, it's no, nothing really at all. So, anyways,
That's
I gotta bring that up.
Oh.
What you got play? What's one of
Well,
your
you were
stories?
talking about eating mulch or whatever, so I think I told you this story once already. So we'd go to a place called Camp Jackson every year. It's like out in the middle of like Podunk, South Carolina. I don't even know where it's at to this day. It's out in the middle of nowhere. Like you would drive forever to get there, like 3 hours, and then you would turn into the entrance of the camp, and like the entrance was just like woods and a path, and it seemed like it went on for like 10 miles until you finally got inside of there. But that's not really part of the story. But it was the camp we went to. So, like, we always got split up into, like, teams, and then obviously you would get assigned, you know, your team color, you paint a team flag, all that stuff for the week. So you'd have to earn points during the week. You know, the team with the most points at the end of the week wins whatever trophy. It was usually like an oil pan is what it was. I don't know why. It was always an oil pan. Oil pan. So, we always did, like, little games, like, before we did, like, chapel services and things like that just to earn extra points. And so we played one game where you take the cereal Kicks. If you know the corn pop cereal, or whatever it's called, I don't know. So they would say, like, you know, put one in your nose and see who could shoot it the furthest, right? So that's what they did. They stood on the side of the chapel where it was just an open area, and they'd shoot it, and whoever, you know, shot it the furthest got so many points or whatever. So me, being the team player that I am, and I was a disgusting teenager anyway, I was like, how many points, like extra points, do we get if I eat them, right? So they told me, thinking like, whatever, he's not. I did it. Like, they shot him, you know, or whatever, and then I picked him up off the ground, the camp chapel ground, mind you, after it just projected from their nose and ate them, and we got our team points, and I'm pretty sure we still finished last that year. So I did all that for, like, nothing, and that's not even the worst thing I did. Like, there's...
It's funny I'm judging you, but here I am having done the things I've done.
Dude, I did. Okay,
crazy
the
things.
worst one might be the worst one. Same deal, same camp, all that other kind of stuff. So we did what they called like random, like, scavenger hunt. So basically they would tell you, like, you know, before, like, night chapel or whatever, like, hey, grab whatever you can and just throw it, like, in a pillowcase or a bag and just bring it with you. It's random scavenger hunt night. So, I mean, they don't tell you what they're going to say. You just pick whatever items, and if they call it out and you have it, you just have it. So we grabbed stuff and they'd be like, okay, who has a penny from, like, the 1990s? And, you know, somebody might have it or whatever. It's like, who's got, like, a purple toothbrush and, like, stuff like that. And they did something like that. They were like, toothbrush, you know, whatever color. And they're like, yeah, I got it, all that other good stuff. Whatever. They're like, all right, we'll give any team any extra points if you take the toothbrush and scrub it between Donnie's toes and brush your teeth. And Donnie was one of our youth leaders, and he was a heavier set guy. He sweated a lot, so obviously everybody was like, oh, we're not doing that. Well, lo and behold, Mr. Kicks over here. I'm like, how many points? And they're like, you're not going to do it. I'm like, how many points? So they tell me, so I'm over there, and I'm like, you know, deep into that man's toes or whatever, and I'm just like, you know,
That's disgusting.
that probably looked bad when it came right at me. I was trying to do toothbrushing first of all. I should have went side to side.
Probably no more motions.
No more motions. So I did that, and once again, don't think we won that year. I don't think my team ever won now that I think about it. So I did all that. But my immune system, strong.
Fantastic.
So
no longer
strong.
Sick ever again.
You think COVID could touch me? Nope.
See, we did one, I wouldn't say it's so nasty. You wouldn't think it's nasty. So one of the things, they're like, all right, guys, we got Big Macs. Who wants to eat a Big Mac? I was like, yeah, let's do this. This sounds great. They're like, all right, we're going to put the Big Mac in a blender. I was like, okay, no problem. It's still going to taste like a Big Mac. No, it does not taste like a Big Mac.
No.
It tastes completely different. I don't know what it is about the chemical compound, but it tastes disgusting. I don't know how to explain it, but it was nasty.
Now, if you were
Never do it.
If you freeze it, though, and get it back into a solid form, would it...
No, it's disgusting.
I'm just saying.
I'm trying to think what to compare it to. You know, like the paste of glue that, you know, you would screw the top on it, like you paint with? That's what it was like, the consistency and the taste.
They have to do that at Martha Frank's for special diets. You know, they take things and they got to have either puree or ground or whatever. And they're like puree, like pureed scrambled eggs, you know, pureed Big Mac, whatever. And I never tried it myself.
I think we should do it. I think there should be a time when we do a podcast where I'm not doing it again. I'll let y'all do it. I'll watch. I'd never want to do it again.
What we should do is, like, just on the podcast do, like, the cliche youth group games, like chug a soda through a sock. Because that's like, I never had to do it. Like, they always say people did it, but we never did that.
Yeah, we didn't do that, which is surprising.
But it was always like, they always made you do it through, like, oh, you got to take, like, Johnny's sock and, like, drink it through Johnny's sock. So first of all,
your own sock.
The youth pastors that came up with this, right? Like, did they not get in trouble for this kind of stuff? Because that's, at what point is that a health risk? You know what I'm saying? Like what if Johnny has gout? You know, and you're drinking gout. You're drinking gout flavored Sprite.
I thought you were talking about you would get gout. I was like, there's no way you
like
get gout.
Like Johnny has gout, and he took his sock off of his gout.
He's like, that kid has gout now.
Like, I don't guess it. Like, obviously gout's like more inside the foot and stuff. But like, say he has like some kind of like fungal thing going on, you know, and Johnny's not going to tell
It's
people
over.
he has
It's
like a
over for you.
fungus, you know? Like, it's kind of gross, you know? I wouldn't do it. That's like Michael last week when we played, what was that game we did? He's like, bro, I didn't wear shoes. I'm like, why didn't you wear shoes to church? Like, I mean, it's fine if you don't have them on, but you didn't wear them here, you know? So
that's completely nasty. I'm trying to think of other things that we did in youth group. I mean, I feel pretty tame for the most part. We did so the Survivor thing. So like I told you, we had a wheel. We had all baby food stuff. People were getting like banana. I was like, oh, that sounds good. Blueberry. I was like, oh, that sounds great. I go right on to beef stew. I was like, oh, that's okay. And took one bite, put it in my mouth. I was like, and I just left. I had to go spit it out.
Like,
it was disgusting.
I feel like the beef stew baby food is the equivalent of the blended Big Mac. Same thing.
I don't understand the people that are like, oh, I love baby food. Oh, let me have some of that. It's like, what's wrong with you? That's full of baby.
Isn't that what Elise said last week? She said, she's like, oh, I love baby food.
I love baby food.
Like,
I love refrigerators.
I don't even think I loved baby food when I was a baby.
I didn't.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I was a chunky baby. I was a fat baby. So I probably ate everything. So who knows?
It's all in the head.
It's all in the head. That's why my head's so big.
You got a big head.
Got a lot of love.
Big brain.
Big thoughts.
That's why he writes all them books.
Writes all them books. They're all up there, all at once. I love the is it the KSI where it's like before thought, afterthought, and forethought or whatever. It's like he remembers what you did tomorrow, or like just a memory because his head's so big.
It's like I remember what you did tomorrow. It's like,
a sniper's dream.
Right.
those are awful.
Back in the day, they used to say they'd say you got a 5 head, you know.
5 head. Oh, it's so
that used to be mean. Now it's just like okay, whatever.
Oh, it's like the
your
hand. If your head is bigger, or your hand is bigger than your head, you have cancer. So.
Fell for that one, yeah a few times.
Get smacked constantly.
Or you just go up and like hit people in the back of the knee for no reason.
Wow, this sounds mean.
You just walk and you just kick them in the back of the knee and they fall. You know. Oh, we used to do some really dumb. Well, again in youth group, see. My thing was like we were always like well maybe not everybody but me from time to time like trying to we do stupid things to impress females so there was like one time we found the old school like emo studded belt you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so we had one of those and we were just seeing who could take the most licks from it, So, but we were doing it like in the back of the leg, you know what I mean? So, like, there was this one girl I'm not going to mention her name in case.
I got a plan. We're going to press this girl and see who can take the most hits.
Well, it's like you want to like look like you're being like tough and try to make them laugh, that like sort of deal.
The chairs,
yeah, it's like the chair. It's the same thing with the chairs. And there was one girl in my youth group. I'm not going to say who it was in case this somehow ends up on air and she hears it or whatever. But there was one that I was interested in at the time. We never did end up dating or anything, but she was there that night, and I'm just like, I was like, I'm just gonna take as many as I can. I want to look tough, look like a man, and I don't know, teenage age, whatever. I don't know how old I was, but dude, that freaking hurt. That was such a bad idea.
I think
horrible idea.
We've all done a lot of things we're not proud of in youth group, especially trying to impress a girl. I won't say the girl's name, but if you are viewing this, I am so sorry. Happily married, by the way. But just so you know, I was a kid. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, the Lord has blessed me with her presence. I know this is the one I'm going to marry. Our love is pure and strong. It will last forever. I know the Lord wants this to happen. And so, that wasn't right. That wasn't me. That was the hormones of a 13-plus-year-old kid.
That was your fleshly heart. That was deceiving you.
My little fleshly
heart. The heart is deceitful.
Not my spirit. My fleshly heart, my spirit. But
I remember one time we, I think it was like, I don't know, I was a few years still into youth group, and we did some kind of study, and they got us to take like a book home to read, and it taught about like relationships, and I was in, I guess you could call it a relationship. I don't really think you're dating at that age or whatever you think you are, and I thought I was dating this girl. I guess I was. I mean, I'm pretty sure we were together, but I mean, depends on who you ask, I guess. I don't know. To me, like,
if you asked me, we were in a relationship.
I think I was
anyone else, I was a stalker.
I honestly feel like I was her secret boyfriend. If you know what I mean, like I knew, like she wouldn't like tell, but like I felt like we were in a relationship because we, you do things like hold hands or whatever. But I don't think she like put it out there for the world to know. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like the secret shame.
The secret shame.
But,
I'm ashamed of you, but
same to you. I feel that. I understand why. But we took the little book home for whatever study we're doing to talk about relationships, and we probably shouldn't even been doing a study on relationships. Would be at that age, and I remember the book like saying something like
if you're dating a girl right now or a boy or whatever, that relationship will not last. I'm like, man, book don't know what it's talking about. I'm like, we're in love. We're going to get married. I'm like a freshman in high school, you know. I'm like, we love each other. You know, we got such a good relationship. And, of course, we broke up. I'm just like, this book's stupid. It doesn't know me. So it definitely knew me.
So a little bit of a news flash. So, like, I don't know if you guys had, like, Awana. So it was like, you know, you memorized verses. You did all these games. So I went from, I think it was junior varsity to varsity. And so there's a difference, right? So, like, our varsity, like, group was just all girls. So I stepped in, like you know, like wrestling. He's like, I was like, here I go. I have arrived. I have all. This is the Bachelorette.
This is my moment.
This is my moment.
You only get one shot.
I only get one shot. And then I honed in on that one girl.
Spaghetti.
Yeah, mom's spaghetti. I honed in on this one girl for like, I would say probably a good 3 years, and I feel so bad for her.
Dude.
But I was like, the Lord wants us to chase after Him. I have to do that with this girl. But I will say the one good thing about it is obviously my obsession being a young teenager that just was in it for the wrong reasons. I learned what it was to follow Christ for her example, you know.
Sure.
So I followed after her, but I was like, oh, you know, this Bible stuff's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
And I started reading more and more, and I understand.
So there was a benefit to it.
So there was a good thing.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it
if you're
wasn't
going
all
through
bad.
it, you know, just please don't be a stalker of a girl or obsessed with her,
dude,
and all that stuff.
Same thing. There was a girl, like, we dated again. I don't know, you can call it dating at that age or whatever, but we dated wherever. She was our music minister's daughter at the time, and we ended up like, I think I broke up with her, and
you think?
I'm pretty sure I broke up. See, here's the thing. I think what had happened, if I remember it correctly, if I'm not wrong. So like, obviously, I was a kid, she was a kid, all that stuff, and I broke up with her because I was starting to dig this other girl, you know what I'm saying, and then wanted to date that girl, and
is this the same one you guys did the book with, or is this a different one?
This is a different girl.
I was going to say, I was like, wow.
So
he's like,
yeah,
throw that book out. I'm done. Forget this book. He doesn't know what's going on.
But yeah, we dated. I broke up with her, but then like, I felt like I was, you know, still like chasing after her for like a couple years or something after that. And I remember one time we used to do like this Christmas program. And I like worked up the nerve that I'm going to ask her out again. And, you know, she'll be out like walking her. I was like, you know, will you be my girlfriend again? She was just like, no. And just bam, shot me down just right there. And the funny thing was, because like, you know, her dad like owns a Chick-fil-A, still does. And my dad, I guess, I don't know how much longer it was around. He's like, man, we could have had it all. We could have had all the Chick-fil-A. And
we
I was like, Dad,
in our hands.
I was like, we were like in middle school. Like, I don't think we were going to get married or anything.
Your dad thought very far ahead, farther than
very far ahead.
That was a wise
very
man.
far ahead.
But it saw the investment.
What's so funny though is like when we like started again dating or whatever you want to call it, like her dad, like such a great guy, like such an awesome dude. And I remember he like walked to me and he's like, so what are your intentions with my daughter? And at that age, I was like, I don't know, because I didn't know what the word intention meant. You know what I'm saying?
What does
so
intention
just like, I don't know, you know. But it was like one of those like he was like joking sort of deal, but probably was a little bit serious too, you know, because it's his daughter, you know.
I'm sorry, we haven't gotten to that vocabulary word in our unit.
I definitely did not, but yeah, but I was like, I don't know if you want to call it obsessed or whatever, but I like tried really hard to like, you know, get her back and all that stuff, and it just, I don't blame her. I would have been like, dude, you broke up with me. Remember, you broke up with me and all that stuff, so I can't blame her, you know, like fair to her.
It's one of those things where you look back at some of the stuff you did, like maybe in the moment you're like, oh, this is the right thing. You look at him like, boy, why did you do that? Why did you pursue them? Like, I don't know.
I cringe at some of the things.
Oh yeah, I think about them
from back in the day, because now like I'm older, probably not that much wiser, but you know, smarter than I was at that age. But I look back, I'm like, dude, like, why? What were you thinking?
I remember when Facebook first came out, and you know, like, what is it? Maybe I'm mixing it up, but it's like writing on your wall. And like from my first post, I saw Matthew is contemplating looking at the sunset. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, what in the world?
I used to do that stuff too. It'd be like Matthew is, and you talk in third person.
Yeah, Matthew is contemplating the future while playing his guitar. It's just like, oh.
There was like when I was like, Matthew's going to hang out with the homies. I'm like,
I had one that's like Matthew's going on taco run. I was like, what is a taco run?
That's a legitimate status. It is. Don't hate on that one.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I got a little overzealous on that one.
I think about now, especially with like us being like, you know, youth pastor and youth leaders and all that stuff. Like I think about, you know, like some of the stuff, like how our kids are and everything, and like how I feel in the moment for certain things and all that. And like, I remember like my youth pastor, his name was Brian. And, I feel like I gave him such a hard time. I feel like he probably just was so frustrated with me all the time. And I think about that now. I was like, dude, I feel what he was feeling. Something like, obviously I love our kids, you know what I mean? But there's those moments like where they can frustrate you a little bit and stuff. And I'm like,
well, see, like the biggest thing we even talked about this is like events and stuff. You put so much like effort into it. You research stuff. You price compare. You have to build the things. So like you have to craft the things out. And so when they like don't really accept it the way you expect, you're like, oh, I was like, I worked so hard, and then it's like they don't realize what all we did for that. And like the 30-hour famine weekend, for example, we were exactly like exhausted. I know I crashed pretty hard after that. Went to Burger King. I mean, not Burger King. I went to McDonald's and took down some big nuts.
Oh yeah, I went to McDonald's myself. But I think about my like old youth leaders a lot because they're like at the time when I was in youth group, like we're like the age that they were, maybe a little bit older now, and I'm just like, dude, like sometimes I don't feel like I have it all together, and like they were my age, you know.
They feel that way.
I feel like they handled it so well. Like from as a youth looking at leaders, I'm like, I feel like they handled it so well. And like now I think about it, I was like, how did they put up with me the way that I was as a teenager?
I'm like, I'm an adult, and I'm still like, I feel like a kid still. And it's like, were they adults? You know what I mean? Like, were they more adult than I am right now? Were they having the same feelings?
Well, I talked to Richard one day. I was like, you know, I wonder if you ever just actually ever feel like an adult, like truly feel like an adult. Cause I'm like, I don't ever feel like I'm in my 30s or whatever. And he was like, Griller, he's like, you don't. He's like, you just never feel like an adult ever. Cause I figured at a certain point, I'd be like, you know, once I'm 30, I'll feel like, okay, yeah, I'm an adult or what. But like now I'm like, I still kind of feel like, you know, not really teenage me, but like much younger me. I'm like, I don't feel my age, if that makes sense. Not like physically, but just like.
Yeah, I don't feel it on a day-to-day basis, but like when I teach kids or whatever, that's when I really am like, I'm definitely an adult. I feel very lame. They'll start saying all these phrases and they'll be just saying stuff that's unfunny, and the kids will be like, oh, that's hilarious. I'm like, that is it? That was the worst joke I've ever heard in my life.
That's why I like thinking like some of that stuff that we were talking about earlier, that like doing in youth group and everything. I'm like, I just wonder, like, you know, did my youth leaders think the same way that I think now? You know, with some of the stuff that like we do, like, bro, what are you doing? And like all that, you know, I look back on, I'm like, I thank God for them, because they had to have a lot of patience, probably with me specifically, but maybe with some of the others. But I'm like, I can like go back and just remember like each one that I had, and remember like what each one did for me that kind of shaped how I am now. Cause I'm like, and I got to think about it in that perception too, like everything that we do, like years from now. Cause even like me now, I can think about years ago. I'm like, man, I thank God for like what they did.
Right.
Because I wouldn't be, you know, obviously I'd be serving the Lord and everything, but like I'm able to live my calling out because of what they did for me at that age, you know, and always hope obviously that what we're doing now does, like in the moment, doesn't seem like, oh, well, this doesn't really feel like a big deal, or maybe they're not getting it, or, you know, we're just doing games here, retreats here and stuff like that. But like maybe 10 years from now, like how we're doing, like they'll be like, you know what, because of the youth leaders I had, I am where I am now. You know what I mean? Yeah, so like I think about things in that aspect. I'm like, I hope what my youth leaders were for me and how I think about them now is what our kids think about us, like 10, 20 years from now. Like if it wasn't because of them, I'm where I'm at now spiritually. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And, you know, we've kind of talked about this behind the scenes a little bit, and, you know, texting and stuff. It's kind of one of those things as you get older, you start to lose your mentors more and more, and you're starting to realize, oh, I'm now the person that mentors somebody else. And so like that kind of passing of the torch thing. And for me, I've mentioned before, Mr. Dale is an example to me. And I'm like, am I a good Mr. Dale for the next generation? So like someone that they can point back to is like, yeah, this man or this woman exemplified Christ, and that helped me in my walk. And it's something they can really point to in a kind of a part in their life. And that will be the same with you being the youth pastor here, is that, you know, even though some days you may not feel like I'm not really getting through to them, they may not be exactly getting it, but you know, there'll be something down the road, and you've said this a few times, where they'll say something to recall information. You'll be like, oh, they are paying attention some of the times. And
dude,
so that's
they hit you with random moments like that.
Like,
they'll say something, it's like, oh my gosh, you were listening.
It's kind of like with my kids, how they'll be randomly, without being prompted, be like, I love you, Dad. And you're like, oh, I was like, that was beautiful. And then they'll go and do something really bad, like draw on the wall. And you're like, oh, that was great. And so that,
it's like after that, but it's like you hit that one moment where it's like, oh,
that was nice.
It's like they just said that, like they didn't say it because I said it first. They generally are like, I love you, Dad. You know, stuff like that.
Oh, that's so nice. And then I'm, you know, gonna go draw on the wall and draw
for sure.
Giant rainbow.
You gotta hang on to those glimpses when they get there.
Hang on to those.
It's like
nuggets.
lightning in a bottle. You gotta catch it when it comes up, because if not, like you said, the next thing happens. And you're like, oh my gosh,
oh my gracious,
what are you doing? You know.
So yeah, count your wins for sure. definitely special in ministry, and like a little bit of time they've allowed me to serve with you too, is saying and youth leaders and all that stuff. It's been definitely a blessing. Santa's behind the scenes with his dog
Off camera, but
off camera.
Yeah.
He about to tell his coyote story later.
Don't get too mad because I realized that the memory card wasn't in there after about 15 minutes.
So you're telling me we've been talking this whole time?
so there you can get any of it.
I've got the last 7.5 minutes though.
Okay, well, we've had a good discussion last
that's
7.5.
pretty
That's
good.
not bad.
7.5 minutes.
That's not too
bad.
bad.
I happened to look down and I saw.
Okay, I thought he didn't get any of it.
was
I'm
like,
like, we
no!
talked about some good stuff
There was
here.
some good stuff, bro.
I was about to flip this table if I physically could.
I don't think you physically
It's a
could.
pretty heavy table.
heavy table.
I'm about to shift this table so much out of anger. It's custom made.
It's custom made.
No,
It's a Ric Flair table, custom made.
I literally looked down and I just went,
Uh-oh.
wait a minute.
Well, at least you got the last 7. I think the last 7.5 minutes was really
7.5
good.
is good stuff.
That wasn't bad.
Minutes now, so.
I think we had some good stuff going there. Like the first part was us talking about the youth group stuff, stupid stuff we did. The last little bit, we got a little more serious.
So wait, was that talking about like the dating scene, or was it? When did it? Oh,
All the
okay.
dating stuff I missed.
Oh, good. Oh no.
Oh no,
Oh well.
that's the one
fine.
we didn't want. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
No
that's fine.
matter. That
That's-
was good
it's-
stuff too. 'Cause
it's
there
probably
were some
just-
funny moments in there for sure.
It's probably just a moment to let it out, and be like
I happened
my.
to look and it had the big X on it. I was sitting there going, everything's right. And I started looking. I was like, what's that X?
That's that new censored program. It's like saying things it doesn't agree with. It's like zzz.
It's like that picture we took last week. Where I'm just you're back there like
I don't know. Really, genuinely don't know what was going on there.
I don't either.
I had the,
Andrea told me what she thought it was, and I think it was. Oh gosh, what'd she say now? Because she said it. I'm like, that sounds like that's probably when that happened. I can't remember what she said now.
and that was when I realized the memory card was still in here from when I put it into the computer, and I was like, ooh.
Well, we got to find a new sound tech. This one's fired.
Well,
He's outta
he paid for the equipment, so I guess
I mean, that's a
we'll
good
forgive
point.
him. We'll
Yeah,
forgive him.
good point. Good point.
It's like
So,
that episode of
you get
Friends.
forgiveness.
It's like the episode of Friends where it's like, oh, I need to pay you for all my acting lessons. And he shows them out. He goes, oh, don't worry about it.
Don't
no
worry
problem,
about it.
buddy. So you fell asleep at one of my shows.
No big deal.
No big deal. No problem.
That's great.
Yeah.
What was the one I just saw recently where he was talking about like when you lose or something and you do like the, you lost thing, but you want to look happy. So you're like, and you like do the little thing. It's just like, you're like act surprised, but like happy at the same time. You're just like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, yeah, good for them.
Good,
Good for them. So happy for them. You have to with the Dove Awards, man. Like at the Grammys, you can act mad because you're like, man, I should have won with the Dove Awards. That's Christian awards. So you can't be like, man, I had a better song about Jesus than them.
What is
You
it?
kidding me?
Is it Jennifer Lawrence that like, if I don't get it, I'm leaving, or something like, if I don't win, I'm leaving, or
If I don't
something?
win, I'm leaving.
Someone of the Dove Awards. I didn't win the Jesus is humble. Or
I didn't get the
something
most
like-
humble award.
My
What?
humble award. I didn't get it.
I just want to know what kind of categories there are because, like, at the Grammys, you have like Christian album of the year or something like. Or they're all
So
Christian
ugly
albums.
crying or soft crying
Oh my gosh!
or joy.
The most out of context song about Jesus award goes to Bethel.
Bethel. I know. It kind of relates more of a serious note, I would say. So one of my professors was talking to us about worship music and how you have to be really kind of selective of what you choose
You
for
do
your church.
nowadays.
Because like there was one, he said an old hymnal, and I think it's something like Jesus is pleading, ever wanting you to come forward. Jesus pleads and cry, like it kind of like that is the song.
Right.
It's like Jesus isn't really pleading. He's he's
Like
Lord,
he extends
so
an
he's commanding.
invitation, but he's not like
he's
begging
merciful,
you.
but he's not begging you. He knocks at the door and you respond.
I mean, it's one of those things like, you go into a town, they don't hear you, knock the dust off your feet, keep moving. Like he's not gonna, like he's gonna pursue you, obviously, but he's not gonna be like groveling, like please, like the invitation's there. If you take it, you take it. If you don't, then
Well, I mean, we can kind of go into the discussion about worship since the sound tech thing kind of messed up. But so like one of my favorite stories, and you've probably heard it before, is about Matt Redman. And he's wrote several ones. Like I want to say it's 10,000 Reasons. And it's Heart of Worship was the name of the song. And
Classic.
so I like that song a lot because the pastor at one point was like, they're having trouble with worship and stuff, and he's like, we're gonna figure out what worship is without music. So he's like, we're gonna pull out all the equipment. We're gonna take it out, and then until you guys figure out how to worship correctly, we're gonna bring that stuff back. But you guys need to learn how to worship in that time slot without music, because we assume that worship is specifically music.
right.
And so Matt Redman said they had that time, and so they were talking together, they were praying together, and they really learned what worship was. And the song "Heart of Worship" came because of it, which was a pretty cool
That is
story.
neat. Well, I just heard something today too on Instagram Reels. I think it was. I don't know who the guy was. You could tell he was like a Baptist preacher. Like had the the suit, the deep Southern accent, all that stuff. And he was like, you can get up here and you can say, open your hymnal page, 332. We're singing hymn 332 or whatever. And he's like, and you can sing it, but Jesus hadn't been in that church in 15 years. He's like, but then you could go to this other church down the street and, they got drums and guitars and flip flops and they're wearing their shorts and they're singing. He's like, but maybe Jesus hadn't been to that church in 15 years. And he talks about like how they put so much emphasis more on like the instruments and I guess like the theatrics of the worship, but it's like those have nothing to do with worship.
Right.
Like it's
exactly.
not the instruments, it's not the tools that you use of what worship is. It's like what's pouring out from your heart is what
Right.
worship truly is. Like what your
It's like,
focus
what
is.
worship does Jesus accept? Does it need to be one hand, two hands, pizza,
Field goal.
how long is my fish? Like all those different ones. And so, again, I think it's like, it's more of your heart condition than anything. It's like, what is bringing you to the heart of worship? So
Right.
like, is it all about Jesus or is it all about, I hate to say this and I don't want to offend anyone, but like a lot of times people will lift their hands because someone's looking. It's like, I want to look more spiritual. Hello, Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Hi. I'm more spiritual, and you like that steeple. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a tall steeple. I'm closer to God, sort of
Sure.
thing. But if it's a genuine response of worship, then hey, do
Oh,
it.
yeah.
But don't do it just
Well,
to.
on that topic too, like, and a couple things to go with it. Now that I'm thinking about it, there was a guy that was discussing. I'm trying to remember exactly where I was going with it now. He was talking about crap. Where was I going with that? I had two thoughts in my mind.
It's because of these. You forget exactly what you're like. Well,
Yeah,
what was
it's
I
like
going
you're
with
sitting
that?
there listening, you can hear yourself and all that, but like I'm trying to think because like I had just recently heard it because it was talking about something like that. I remember what it is now. So the guy was talking about it was actually Shane Pruitt. I don't know if you know who Shane Pruitt is.
Yeah.
But he was talking about like God's not the big man upstairs. He's sovereign and Lord and stuff like that. And it's like he make it seem like it's kind of just inappropriate and it's just kind of like don't call him the big man upstairs. I'm like, but I'm like I get where he's coming from, but like at the same time, if somebody is coming from a place of reverence, when if they're earnestly seeking him and like maybe they just happen to use the term like he's the big man upstairs to me and stuff like that. I'm like that's coming. I'm like that's heartfelt for that person. Like it just really depends on how you're using it, and I know you can't use that with everything, but I'm like you got this one guy who's seeking and following the Lord with all of his heart, and he's like I just thank the big man upstairs because he was talking about athletes, like, oh, I just want to thank the big man upstairs. And yeah, you can kind of throw that around. I'm like, but I feel like if you're coming from a place of like honesty from your heart, like genuineness, yeah, I think that's okay. I don't think there's anything
Just
wrong
no
with
daddy
that.
God, please.
No daddy God. No,
Don't do it.
No papa.
No papa.
Nothing like that.
Don't do any of that.
I will holy slap somebody in the face. Like
I get
out
it
of
during
love.
like a sermon, you're like, it's like an intimacy, it's like calling him, that you call your
Yeah.
dad. But it's just a little strange.
It's
just,
straight. I mean, I
comes out
get it.
right,
Like again,
kinda
if
weird.
it's from a place of reverence, then cool
Yeah.
for you. But it makes me so
you
uncomfortable.
can do it in
though.
your personal life, just
Yeah.
don't do it in the public.
I mean,
please.
there's probably things that like we do that people were like, well, some
sure.
people are just like, oh, I don't raise my hands. That's okay, cool. That's not how you worship. That's fine. Like that's just something some people do. Like the other thing, for example, like I was talking about, I did that sermon like however many weeks ago, and obviously people that know me or don't know me, whatever, knows I watch wrestling. Roman Reigns, he's the tribal chief, and their whole thing is, they acknowledge him. They throw up the ones because they're like, we're the ones. Like it's what they do or whatever. And so like when I went on my sabbatical and stuff, and I really dove into how Christ is Lord, and if He's Lord over everything in your life. Not just these certain little areas, not these compartmentalized places in your life, but like if He's Lord of everything, like every little aspect of your life. And so like I say, like when I worship, people throw up their hands and stuff, but like I'll throw my hand up like that because to me, and it sounds cheesy to other people, but to me, I'm like, I'm acknowledging that He's Lord. You know what I mean? Like that's my personal thing for me to Him. Like, hey, if I'm going to live my life for You, if I'm going to walk the walk and talk the talk and, tell people, who it is that I'm following, I want to make reverence to that and be like, if this is what's going to be, if I'm going to live it publicly, I'm going to put it out there for myself to Him, and kind of hold myself accountable in that sense. Like if I'm going to acknowledge Him as Lord in that sense, then it needs to be that way. So if I'm going to do it publicly, then I'm going to hold myself accountable. Like, okay, if you want to acknowledge Jesus as Lord, then you're going to have to go out there and actually do it, and then if people happen to see that during my worship and then they see me out in public acting a certain way, then it's kind of that accountability there too. It's like, okay, well, you want to acknowledge Him as Lord, but you're out here doing this, what I mean? And
I agree 100%.
And kind of that's just for me personally, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know for me, I'm more of a, like, so I'm not more of a lifting hands. There are times like where I feel the spirit to lift hands, but what I'll do is I'll sit in the pew in front of me. I'll sit here and hit it like drums. I'll sit there and stand to it. Or I'll maybe even do like one of these where I put my hands beside myself and it's like that, like kind of like it's like God take, what I have and use it for your kingdom. But I mean, we did some of this in our old church, but it's not like it's something I'm entirely used to. I would say the Baptists are called the chosen frozen. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase.
I've heard that one.
And so it's just, again, it's based on the way you're raised. So I know some Pentecostal people that go to Baptist churches now, they're just a little different. Their worship, and that's okay. But I think if your heart's in the right place, you can worship whatever way you'd like to.
Sure.
I'm not saying that means doing cartwheels and stuff. I mean, you can. You're at the right spirit, you are, but some of that stuff you gotta be careful, man.
Yeah, it's like a time and a place, you know what I mean? Like obviously if you lean more towards that, then obviously going to like a Baptist church, like you're gonna probably be a distraction to others. And I know there's like, well, it's between you and God. It's like, yeah, but there's a time and a place. If that's kind of your style of worship, then you probably need to be centered around a church that has kind of that same, not that you're not welcomed at that church, but I mean, there is a difference between, worshiping freely and then being a distraction for other people who are trying to
It's like, we're going to do invitation, and then old Jimmy Bob jumps up and does cartwheels and flips. It's like, that's probably not the right time for that.
Not the right time. And then it's like you kind of, I don't want to say you need to find your place because that sounds wrong, but probably that's,
you need to stay in your place.
But right, you stay in your place.
Pew, your specific pew. You can't sit in our pew.
Sit in your assigned pew.
Sit in your assigned pew.
But it's like, it's one of those things too, like people, when they visit churches, they find something that they go to, they find a place where they feel like they can grow spiritually, that they have people with like, like-minded like beliefs like they do, and like I've said it to other people too, like I've invited people to Northside. I'm like, listen, you can come and you can visit, and we might not be the church for you, and that's okay.
That's acceptable.
We would like everybody that comes to visit
Jesus
to love us.
doesn't exclusively meet at Northside. Newsflash.
But believe it or not, like he does not.
He does not meet exclusively here. We'd like to point that out.
Like I like to tell people I really like our church, because I was like, obviously I'm a little biased, and all that stuff, but like I feel like our church, it's pretty. I don't want to use the term laid back because that seems like too loose, but at the same time, it's not very. How do you put it?
So I would say you're more like traditional. So like you don't have to dress up or like do suits and stuff. Like you can come in a t-shirt.
You can just be comfortable.
You can be comfortable. So like we don't have that high standard.
Yeah, and it's not like it's gonna be.
We're not gonna
like,
turn you away. It's like, oh, that's not a collared shirt. Oh, it ain't tucked in. Oh, get out.
Right. It's one of those things like if you want to come and
come as you are, kind of thing.
Yeah, come as you are. Like because we have a plethora
with showers in the back. No, I'm just kidding.
Showers in the back. We ain't got no showers.
We got no showers yet.
I mean, you got to think we got people from all different sorts of walks in life, and I know that's true for like every church, right? But like, I mean, obviously I'm much different than like how you are, and like you're much different than how I am, and then like Jason's more of like an outdoorsy guy, working kind of do like that.
Jason in here. We need to have an interview with Jason.
We gotta have an interview with Jason.
I love Jason.
It's like we just have like so many different groups, but the thing is like, and I guess this is kind of the point that I was trying to make. Like we got people from like who are so different from one another, but like literally we can go up to anybody in church and just talk to them.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of cohesion, especially with all the differences we have, I would say.
Because I mean, I've been a part of a church before. I'm not going to mention which one it was or whatever, but it was very cliquish. Like if you're not in the pastor circle, you're probably not going to get a lot of time to talk to the pastor. He doesn't seem interested in talking to you. And then you got the youth pastor who's too scared to do anything because he's afraid of his own shadow, and he's afraid he's going to make the pastor mad or whatever. Because there's a story, for instance, I was helping with youth before I was actually doing youth at this particular church. And it was like we were just setting up. They had like a kind of something similar to this almost. Like they had a little soundboard, kind of like how most churches have one upstairs. They had a little soundboard in there, pretty decent sized youth room, screen, all that stuff. And I was, playing some music or whatever, and we were playing like Building 429, stuff like that. And this was probably back in, well, I don't even want to say what year it was because it might give away more information than it needs to. But I started playing like, Lecrae or like some 1,000-Foot Crutch, and he was just like, "Whoa, what is that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's cool. It's Christian." He's like, "We need to turn that off. Pastor isn't going to like that." I'm like, "But it's not like secular. It's talking about Jesus." Like, "No, we just turn it off. Turn it off. We can't. We don't need to play that." And I'm just like, I don't see what the big deal. I'm like, if we're trying to reach youth, we're not going to get them with the Gaithers. You know what I'm saying? Like, they
Don't
don't want
knock
to
on
hear
the
that.
Gaithers, man.
I mean, I'm not
That's
knocking
great.
on the Gaithers.
How dare you?
I just don't know many 13
No,
and 14 year olds
I
that want to
get
hear
what
the Gaithers or whatever.
I know, kind of the same token as we at my church, we had a youth Sunday, specifically youth Sunday, where we were broadcasting. Hey, it's it's going to be younger music,
Yep.
more contemporary stuff. There might be a little rap, a little rock and stuff. And so we did a video like starting out. It's like, don't judge a book by its cover. So like they had a picture of this like kind of older car, big tires and stuff, and it was banging to some music and was driving down the road. And a little bit later you find out it's this granny like rocking out to some music or whatever. Well, so before it even got to that point, we had one of our members, and I won't say who it is, any situation about it.
Miss Bethany.
Miss Bethany. No. So this member got up.
Bat.
Yeah, you old bat. How dare you?
Just joking.
They're like, that specific name was it, and they're just going to show up one day and be like, how dare you?
Right.
So this person got up and like a child, I kid you not, like was fussing the entire time, wailed as they went down the aisle out the door, and like was saying it's like the church is going to start doing the rap music and stuff. And it was a really big
Not
thing.
the rap music.
Yeah, and left us a very stern note and left the church that day. He took his family and left. It was about 6 people, but he was the one that left, and then he took his family with him.
It was Youth Sunday, though.
Yeah, it was a youth Sunday, and like he didn't watch the whole video, and the whole idea was like, hey, you don't judge a book by its cover. Everybody listens to what they listen to. It's like we're all one family in Christ, and so we come
Right.
together in that beauty and kind of that melting pot
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
And so,
Well,
but
it's
that
like-
was a rough time.
It's like the music I listen to, right? It's like it's metalcore or whatever, but they have the Christian genre, which has been deemed kingdom core.
Oh, kingdom core, nice.
So it's like literally like bands that sound like like
So called metal gold. We'll just start calling it gold.
metal gold,
Metal gold.
metal gold. That's what
Metal
it's called.
gold.
But like to me, it's like from the outside looking in, it sounds like, oh my god, he's listening to that devil music. You know what I'm saying? But like you listen to the message of it, though, I'm like,
Well, that's like a lot of Lecrae songs. I had a boss of mine that rode with me, and we listened to, is it Runners by Lecrae?
Yeah.
And he was like, you're a Christian, right? I was like, yeah. He's like, what is this song? He listened to it longer. He goes, oh, okay, I see what it's saying, the message it's trying to portray.
yeah.
And I'm like, yep, that's, it's good stuff. I like it kind of breaches that thing. So like
Oh,
non-believer will listen to it and be like, oh, there's a little more to it than I actually thought, So
Oh, for
there's
sure,
a deeper meaning that people can delve from it.
oh, no doubt. That's why I said that's one thing I like about it. Like obviously we use like the tracks and like YouTube music stuff to do ours because it's all we can do right now. And I love it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like I don't have any issues with it because I mean like Dana and Noel and Sean and like all them singing all the time. Like it just flows so well.
it does,
and
for sure.
We've had a live band before and stuff like that. It's like no matter what we end up doing, it's like it's all still worship. Because I know some people like. I'm a part of like different groups on Facebook, and they're just like, what's something that we could do because we don't really want to use tracks. People don't like tracks, or and it's like I think at a certain point you get a little too picky about it because it's like ultimately worship isn't. And I heard another guy talk about this. He's like, worship isn't for us. Worship is obviously for God. So people be like, oh, I didn't really like the worship today, and he's like, well, we're not worshiping you. We're like obviously we love music,
Right.
we have
You
it's
wanna
like,
feel good
I
still,
don't like
as
it.
you're
It's like
engaging
you want
in it,
to
yeah.
feel it or whatever, but it's like ultimately it's like, well, you maybe didn't like the worship or whatever, but there was somebody like in the seat over next to you who was like literally pouring their heart out to God, and they might not even been singing, they might have just been taking in the words, and maybe just like praying silently in their seat or just meditating on what was being sung. It's like worship. And it's what we were going back to before. Like worship's different for everybody, whether you're doing
for sure.
cartwheels, raising your hands, or whatever. It's like
Cartwheels, backflips.
obviously we all have our preferences and stuff, but like there's stuff like there's Christian music out there that like I don't think is all that great. I'm just like it's okay, and we do our worship and stuff like that. But even if there's like certain songs like I don't like or listen to, like even the message behind it. Especially if I'm like listening to the radio, even though most of the time I listen to Spotify, but if there's like something on the radio, like a lot of my instinct for any music, I was sound like skip or whatever, but you can't on the radio. So I try to like condition myself almost if like the song is on, like, okay, well just focus on the words behind what they're saying. Like, okay, you don't like the song, but like still think about the message behind it. Even if you don't like it, it's still being played for God, like they're still singing their hearts out to God. So try to think of it in that aspect too, because I know worship music at some church, it's make or break for some people. It's like, yeah, I like everything about the church, but I don't like the music, and that's all well and good. But like the other thing I think about it too is, and maybe I'm thinking too far into it, it's like, okay, like you don't like the music, but like what if it's got a kids program where your kids are thriving in it and they're going to know the Lord, or if it's got a youth program where your children are learning more about the Bible and are actually being able to apply
biblically fed.
Yeah, like if you're being biblically fed in every other aspect, but you don't like the worship, I'm like, is it really worth? Cut your losses. Like if you don't like the music, okay, fine, it may not be for you, but like as a whole, like just think about like what the church is doing to spiritually feed you and your family, you know?
Yeah, I think we like to nitpick, like even, it's like, I hate how this guy prays. He goes, Lord God, and he says like, Lord, 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 every other sentence, and I've done that too.
Oh, me too.
And it happens. Sometimes you just get into the moment and you're like, you really focus on his lordship a lot, and I do it too. It happens.
I kid you not, years ago, we had a guy that was here, and he led worship, and I did the welcome and go up there and pray and stuff, and I think it was after service, and he came over to talk to me, and like the first thing he said, he didn't say anything. He's just like, "You say Lord a lot when you pray."
Well, maybe I think he's lordly.
And then I got self-conscious about it. I'm like, do I really? Like, do I say Lord too much or whatever? And then like that bothered me for a little bit.
Well, see, I'll do one of these things. I'll be like, Lord, Father, God. Like I'll just do different
alternate
ones. I'm like, I'm doing it, Lord. You know my heart. You hear what I'm trying to say.
Right. It's when you're talking and you just say the word like in between. So it's like this or like that or like in like it's kind of the same thing when you're praying. It's like instead of saying like, you're saying Lord.
Yeah, I think our perspective should change on that, because like a lot of times, we'll be focusing and nitpicking people's prayers, but we're like, are they saying it just to say it, or are they actually focusing on how like good God is? So like they're saying that title over and over because they're like, God, you're good. That's what they're saying over and over.
Absolutely.
And it isn't less true the more you say it, especially when it comes to God.
But, no doubt. Absolutely.
So, I mean, kind of going back to the worship thing, we talked about like authentic worship and stuff. And like, it makes me think of a Mercy Me song. I think it's, is it Jesus Bring the Rain?
Yep.
It talks about like, no matter what it takes to praise you.
Absolutely.
Let me praise you. And so like, even when it goes back to what you're talking about, is like whether people feel like they got something from worship or they had like an emotional feeling with it. It's like, I like worship or I didn't. I think the important thing is where our heart's at. So like, even when we don't feel like worshiping, we worship still. Even if we're going through hardship, we still worship, we still seek God.
Absolutely.
And so there's the importance of that. It's like, even if we may not feel like worshiping, we still in turn go to worship as a means to outlet kind of our love for God and his worthiness.
And it's not just confined to like the music aspect too, because like I said earlier, like somebody, might not be singing or anything, but they might just be taking it in, in that moment.
Exactly.
Or you could be in your
worship differently. Yeah.
Yeah. You could be like at home in your bedroom alone after a hard day, and you could just be sitting there marinating in God's presence.
I marinate like a steak some days, man.
I'm telling you, dude, I need some marinating for sure. Because need to be marinated in the love of God.
We're gonna have our own barbecue sauce called the Jesus marinating sauce.
We make that. Off. Let's put it in the craft fair. It's like you get you a good brisket on. With this and do your little Bible study, you'll be good to go, brother.
I feel like the majority of like our podcast is like serious,
it takes a lot of turns.
Serious, so we're all over the place.
It takes so many different turns, but I mean, again, like it's one of those things. Like you may not like. I'm sure there's people that don't like everything that I do with the youth ministry. Like there's probably something that's like, well, if it were me, or I don't think this is really correct stuff. I think we all nitpick in areas. I mean, at the end of the day, like. Church is supposed to be church and stuff like that, but I mean, we nitpick everything else in life. Everybody's going to nitpick the church too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a bunch of imperfect people not being perfect. Who knew? So,
well, we talked about it one day, and maybe Jason or somebody that might have said it, was talking about, like church family. Cause I think it might've been JC's like, we're like a regular family. Like we fuss sometimes, maybe we fight a little bit, but at the end of the day, we love each other and we're still family. I'm like, that's legitimately like how it goes. Cause I mean, I'm sure people, again, haven't always agreed with stuff that I've said or done, or I know I haven't always agreed with people on everything all the time. And there may be, his hand is like, I don't agree with none of this stuff that y'all do.
You've said, I have not enjoyed.
But it's like, it's one of those things like, you love and care about each other. It's like, not that, because, it's very easy for people to get upset with somebody in the church and then just want to leave the church.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like,
reason to leave,
I think even though there is like, our worldly aspects of us and our flesh that take over sometimes, like I think it's still a sign of a healthy church if you can have disagreements with people, maybe
still
fuss each other, fight, still love each other. Like you're not just going to get up and leave the church, because like again, there may be people that might not always agree with stuff that I do, or might nitpick about this or say this about this and all that. But at the end of the day, we forgive, we get past it, we move on, and we keep out. I'm like, we're always going to we're not always going to agree on things. We might nitpick and fuss and fight, stuff like that sometimes, but
that's who we are. We're humans, and to me, it's a healthy sign if you can do that with people in your church. Not that you're striving for that, but you can do that with
to fight.
We want to physically
we want
fight
to physically
you
lay
with
hands
love.
on each other, but not in that way.
Right. But like if you can
For healing.
like have those moments though, but you can come back next Sunday and be like, hey, my
we
bad.
may have had a
Yeah, it's
disagreement,
like because it seems like the thing is too like, oh, I can't believe they would do that, and then people just want to start church hopping. You know what they call it, church hopping from here to there, and I've known people like that. And I'm like, I think a good healthy sign of a good growing church spiritually is when you can have those moments where you can fight with others, but you can come in next week. And even if you still don't agree and stuff, you can still talk,
mingle.
and hang out, mingle, and eventually, you move past whatever. Now obviously there's like a line at a certain point where obviously it's not like you can't have like a disagreement like over like doctrine and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and be
that's
like, you're wrong, and
your theology is bad.
that's a whole different thing.
That's problematic.
But again,
I've always heard, and like one of my favorite things that it may have been out of the book, and someone may have said it. I'm not claiming that I've come up with this, but it says
you did.
Oh, I did. Yeah,
He's copywriting it right now.
Author Matthew Fenn. I'm copywriting
TM.
right now. TM. No, I've heard this, and I always like spoke volume to me. It's like in matters of love, you go yourself. So like one of the things I always heard, and like one of the things one of my mentors told me is like, if you love a girl, you go yourself. You go talk to her. You don't give her notes like, here you go, and like you
Right.
go to them. Same thing with like the people you love in your life, your church members. So say like one church member said something about this church person. It's like, okay, so is it good to then just cause this rumor of gossip instead, or instead
Right.
can you just kind of get rid of it and then go talk to the person yourself? So that's kind of how it is with the church and how it should be. So in matters of
Absolutely, yeah.
love, you go yourself, meaning you may hear something, but you just settle it right then and there.
Sure, absolutely. And that's man, he's really wise. Sometimes I think about that. I'm like, Matthew just is so much more wise beyond his years.
No, I'm not wise beyond my years.
I've
no.
told Audrey that before too. I'm like, Matthew he just knows.
No,
a lot.
definitely not. So my problem is, and like you, as I talk more, I will stumble over words because in my brain I'm like, okay, this is a good word, and then I'll like get tongue tied, and that happens a lot. But I'm definitely not.
I'm pretty
wise.
sure I have many strokes from time to time. 'Cause I'll be
strokes.
talking and I'll just like fumble over my tongue.
Especially
That's more
teaching.
than the average idiot.
Wow.
He's not wrong.
And then the darkness comes in.
In the darkness, it might be those monsters I drink.
Could be the monsters.
They're finally starting to catch up with me a little bit,
Oh, geez.
which doesn't help that we sell them at work now. But they're the zero sugars. But again, I have like one every morning.
So my benefit is I used to drink like a Red Bull at work each day, but the good thing is we only have coffee down in the break room, and so I'm like, I'm calming down on that because I'm like, okay, I'm 32. I probably need to calm it down just a wee bit, and I don't want to blow up my heart. So I was like, I'm getting better at it. Starting to work on that. I love a green monster. Those things are so good.
The zero sugar
Sponsorship.
ones are
I'm not gonna drink them though, but please.
they're the devil though. No, I'm just kidding. They're not. I've seen those videos where it's like you turn the
Yeah.
can upside down. No, it's not, Karen.
I can
Shut
see
up, Karen.
a little
It's an
bit.
energy drink.
I can only see a little bit, but like it's one of those things where if you squint your eyes, because it's like the Hebrew of it, I'm like, okay. I mean, I
Like,
see what you're saying, but I really don't.
that's a
think
reach.
It could have been just an
I'm like,
Allosaurus
it's
for all we know.
called Monster.
Yeah.
It's the claws, Yeah. It's
I mean,
like, let's not reach to it. It's
not
like, and if you
reach.
turn it upside down, the cross is upside down. Like, big deal. Peter was crucified upside down because he wasn't worthy enough to be crucified like Jesus.
Right.
I'm like, so people take like the upside down cross. It's like, oh, it's Satan. I'm like, okay, people may have adopted it for that, but I mean, there was martyrs for Christ that were crucified upside down. So
It makes me think. I know this is silly, but have you ever seen the people that get the crosses and it ends up being upside down? I was like,
Yep.
do they really think that through when they're
Nope.
When they're getting
They do not.
I'm like, oh no.
that's why I always think about like all this. They're like, oh, you got it facing that way. I'm like, it's supposed to face that
So
way.
maybe like you fix it by putting. Oh no, that doesn't sound. I was like, put a Peter on there, but that no, that sounds really-
canceled.
So you remember that thing you
Canceled.
just
This
said?
is not for young viewers.
You know what you just said a minute ago? Matthew's wise. Never mind. Take it back. Scratch it out.
I take all that back.
It's all
you
gone.
monster.
You monster.
You've got to go register now. Talking about Peters on the podcast. Wow.
I was talking about Peter, like the apostle.
You're the one that said you was
know
going to
what you
put.
were talking about.
You said you're going to put Peter on your arm.
I wasn't talking about like Peter Griffin. I was talking about like the biblical. But then, because he was crucified upside down. I was like, maybe that
Oh,
would
yeah.
redeem it. But at the same time, I
Nope.
think you're too far gone. I think you just
Yeah,
covered that
because
thing
then
up.
I mean, yeah, he'll be upside down,
Yeah, it's like it's still.
but people won't think about Peter though.
Yeah,
like
they won't.
they'll
They'll
think
be
about
like
like why is
satanic
it's
upside down.
Well, they'll probably just think about it being Jesus. Nobody, why is your Jesus
that's
upside
true.
down? It's like no, it's Peter.
Yeah,
well,
I
it
can
wasn't
see
Peter at first. Then I had to put Peter because he was upside down, and now you got to do that whole explanation.
So I mean, I guess the idea is you do it so you can preach the gospel to somebody.
I mean, yeah, that's
Don't
what I
do
like
it.
about mine, because
Don't
people
do
ask
it.
all the time, like, oh, well, what is that? And then I get to explain it. And that's what I had to start telling my parents when I started getting tattoos, because they were like always like anti-tattoo, never get a tattoo. Well, then I got the first one I got here from Crazy Love by Francis Chan, right? Started off with that one, and like explaining to my mom what it was, because that was like my first one. Then after that, I believe I got these, like for all my tattoos are faith and family based and all that. So, and then like my residents, they'll ask questions, people ask questions, and it gives me an opportunity to share Christ with them. You know what I mean?
Definitely, it's a good idea.
That's
Definitely a
why
good
I
idea.
told them earlier.
It's
I
like,
was like,
stained glass churches, yeah.
yeah, because they were talking about like, is it bad for Christians to get tattoos? And I'm like, for me, I'm like, no, I think Christians can have tattoos, but again,
Revelation.
right, Revelation, King of Kings, Lord of
of
Lords,
Kings,
right
like
there
the-
on the thigh meat.
Right there on the thigh
Right
meat.
on our Savior, right on our King.
Oh, man.
But I told them, like, again, that's an explanation I had to go into way
Oh,
deeper
yeah.
another
Definitely
day,
a good
because like
discussion.
I don't want them to go home and be like, well, Pastor Matt said it was okay to get for a Christian to get a tattoo. It's like, well, and you got to be smart about it though. You don't go get like a flaming skull with the
Yeah.
F word going across its forehead or something and say like,
My
that's
pastor,
okay.
my
you know?
pastor said it was okay.
My pastor said it was okay. It's like,
said
no,
it
that
was-
is not what I said. I'm like, you gotta let me explain it and talk about it and stuff, because
Well, we talked about how like you can have a well-meaning sermon or lesson plan, and the kids will retain only one specific thing.
One
You're like,
thing,
okay, I
not
was
the
like,
thing you wanted.
We explained this in parallel with the message, right? So we're like,
Yep.
we did this to illustrate a point.
That's why
'Cause
we did
needed
it.
to explain. We didn't. There wasn't a whole lesson just on this
before
thing.
they think you're just goofing off and like,
Yeah.
why are you talking
We
to our
had
kids? Like, no,
diagrams
no,
for
no.
your kids. No, we didn't
Right.
do
No,
that.
it's like, this is what it was going
Yeah.
along with, and
This was the story. This was the definition. We just rolled with it, and we had to help them through it because they had questions, and we weren't like
right.
detailed with it. We were just very over the top of it. So
The funniest thing is my granny one time, she was, looking at my tattoo. She's like, the Bible says you're not supposed to mark up your body, talking about Leviticus. I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay. I'm like, what kind of shirt is that you're wearing? She's like, I got this at Hamrick's. I'm like, I didn't ask where you got it. I asked what kind of shirt it was. She's like, well, it's polyester blend in this. I'm like, aha, you sinner. You're going to hell with me, because Leviticus also says you're not supposed to be wearing blended fabric. So it looks like we're both stuck in hell. And then she wouldn't talk to me the rest of the day. So I was
Where
like,
are
if you
your
want to take the
sandals?
Bible out of context, we could take the Bible out of
where are your
context.
sandals, Marjorie?
Right, exactly. I was like, if we want to
Eugene?
take scripture out of context, Granny, like, we can do it. And she didn't want to.
Oh man,
She didn't want to do that with me after that.
I mean, we're well, I probably have to wrap it up soon, but like
Yeah,
I've
it's-
told you a lot of times how like people will take biblical stuff out of context, and like I've had some conversations. Honestly, I wasn't prepared for, because it's something I really never thought about as a believer, as far as like the Old Testament and stuff. And one was slavery. And I've kind of lightly talked to you about this, and I had someone ask
that
me, and they're
one
like,
gets asked a lot.
yeah. And so like when they asked it, I was kind of like, I was like, I have a light understanding of what that was in the Bible. And so like I was able to kind of talk about it a little bit, but they were kind of coming at me from different perspectives. So I had like 4 different people. So I'd say from a discussion standpoint, it's never good when someone just like rapid fire hitting you. You can't even really fully answer a question.
Right.
And so like what we were kind of talking about, even in Leviticus, is even though something is regulated, doesn't mean it's approved by God. So
Right.
an example of that is like divorce. Obviously God loves marriage. And so he regulates it with certain things that you do or don't do. And then obviously you're out of that. And so with slavery, today's topic, slavery.
Slavery.
Sandra just
Canceled again.
just
This
came
man's
in.
been canceled twice.
Canceled twice.
Slavery, Peters. Wow.
Well, irregardless. So the whole idea was like, it's like, well, there's slavery in the Bible, then God obviously, allowed slavery, and why didn't he allow that? And so it opens up that conversation. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, this is the American version of slavery, and this is what the biblical one was. One
Right.
was a form of debt. You had a lot of different rules and stipulations that would elevate the person that was in that kind of relationship, but
Right.
not so much in the American one, where there was more racism and other things going on. So there's always a good teaching point. So even for kids, you can kind of bring it back.
Well,
to
that's
those.
like why we've been doing that in Sunday school now. We've been taking verses that are mainly taken out of context. We start with like Philippians
everywhere.
4:13, and like we take that time Sunday mornings and we break down like, okay, well, let's look at the context of it. Let's look at what happened before that verse. Let's look what happened the rest of the chapter after that, and let's see what it's actually saying. What God's actually talking about here. So
And see, you're introducing the kids to hermeneutics, which is
Yeah.
a pretty, far along theological. I know you know that word, but most people don't. So it's like just the breaking down the scripture, which is great,
Right.
especially for people that So like Mr. Dale, I'll mention him probably a lot in further podcasts. He was a great
Shout out.
mentor for me. Shout out Mr. Dale. Oh, he's,
Oh, sorry.
Shout out. There you go. He's definitely up there. Know him, great mentor. And one of the things he told me, he's like, there's a danger in opening your Bible and just randomly picking a verse sometimes. He's like, sometimes you don't know what you're going to pick, and then you have that problematic nature where you just pull something out, and alone it may mean one thing but with the context and everything else, it takes on a whole new meaning. I know there's an example in MacArthur's book. I think it's Charismatic Chaos, and he talks about how like this person does it. They're like, all right, we're going to do a prophetic thing here. You're going to open your Bible. We're going to randomly put our finger in there, and that's what it's going to be. And so he does it. He opens it. It says, the Lord hath need of me. He goes, the Lord doth have need of me. But you read a little later, he's talking about a donkey.
Right.
Like the donkey that he rides. He's like, the Lord hath need. So it's an interesting thing to kind of commandeer.
That's what I always tell them. I'm like, if you're gonna read, like even if you do
read
like
it intently, yes,
right, read it intently, because like even like some of these little study books we give the kids, like if you go and do that study, by yourself, if it gives you like one verse, I'm like, you can take it just beyond what it's telling you to read. I'm like, read the whole chapter instead of just reading those couple of verses, and then if you got like the study Bible, the cross references, I'm like, look at the cross reference verses and see what it's referencing and what it's talking about. I'm like, those are great. Like we bought them those Bibles like a couple years ago, and it has that, the cross references, the studies where you can see context, get a little more history with it. I'm like, you can go beyond, just what your study guide's telling you. I'm like, I mean, there's great things in there. Obviously we look at what we buy them to make sure they're getting something that they can learn from.
Not the message or the Cajun pigeon.
No.
Is that Cajun pigeon?
Hawaiian pigeon.
Hawaiian pigeon.
Funny as it is, it's like not good, but it's like, it's like always like if it gives you a couple verses, if it has a great explanation to go along with it in the personal stuff, that's great. I'm like, but I always encourage them, like, just read that whole chapter, and just see what it's going from there. I'm like, and you might start reading that and maybe even go further. You might start delving into a little more few things there, because I know I used to do that a lot. I would read a couple verses, from like studies when I was like a younger Christian, and it was frustrating to me. And sometimes I'm still like that. Like I get frustrated because I'm like, I need more. Like I need something deeper, And so you go and you start to read more, and then you think about stopping there, but then you get so into it, and next thing you know, you might have gone a couple of chapters. And now you're looking back, from this book to this book to see, how's that reference this? It's saying it goes back to this,
right.
And to me, that's exciting. And like I'm always looking for stuff like that. I don't know. It's like a sickness I have. Like I look at one thing, I'm like, there's more though. I know there's more, and I like go looking for it. You know what I mean?
Digging. He's like, that water's in there somewhere.
It's in there. I know. I'm ready to strike oil at any moment. I just like keep going, and then finally, like, there it is. It's
there. Reminds me of a story like I heard a pastor talk about one time. It was like a pastor's conference, and someone may know what I'm talking about without me even talking about it much. So there's this conference, and like obviously it's a bunch of pastors, and they're all very wise and full of wisdom and stuff. And one of the pastors like, all right, he goes, so what are you going to be preaching on? He's like, it's your turn to speech in this conference. What are you going to talk about? He goes, John 3:16. And so like one of the other pastors just closes his Bible, puts it aside. I think we have to be careful as Christians when we do that, because it's like, if we feel like we've learned everything there is to know about the Bible, even like specific verses, then we're missing something, right?
Absolutely.
Because really God's word is kind of like a flowing river of life. And so it's like, I don't think at any point we'll understand exactly everything, but there's a good way to have hunger like you are. You want to get deeper and understand more. You want to get like that nugget of information. I believe it's in the Old Testament. It talks about, I think it's like the yellow of the yolk, and it sounds more like not like an idiom per se. So like, how we talk about, so like hit the lights, or, we'll turn off the lights or something like that. We don't know what that means, and so the commentaries kind of talk about that. It's like, was it talking about that it's nourishing? Was it talking about it was good? So it's like those things are really, really cool to kind of research and
for sure
delve into. And I'm like you, I fixate on those small points. Like, what did he mean by that?
What did you mean?
What do you mean by that?
What's the hidden meaning
it's
there?
It's like connecting to,
and sometimes it's not that deep, but you take it there.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, maybe not.
I've had those moments before where you're used to like reading the same passage. It's like, I already know what it's saying. But there's been times where I've read a passage
and
learned about it. Like somebody teaches me something new about it. I'm like, how did I never catch that before? It's like, because it's God's word, it's inspired. So it's like God has so many new ways of teaching you different things from literally like the same passage. Like John 3:16. Like everybody knows what it is, but like, you could be listening to a pastor or somebody explain it in a way that you've never heard it before and learn something, because that's happened to me before. I'm like, I've heard this passage like a million times and have never caught that, you know, with somebody else teaching or explaining it. I'm like, how did I never catch that before?
And it's wild how like even circumstances can change it. Like obviously you have you kind of talked about with hermeneutics is like you have the cultural understanding, what was going on in the Bible, what the author was and stuff. And so one that I've noticed was in Job, and it says, my ears have heard of you or heard of your righteousness from afar, but now my eyes sees you. And like, you know, I would hear that and be like, oh yeah, Job's just, you know, kind of talking about stuff. But he's like, well, he's heard about God's goodness, but now that it's in front of him, there's more of an intimacy in God's goodness.
And it's funny that he sees that through tragedy, you know?
Tragedy. So
and not through like all the good things and everything. It's like after he goes through like the worst tragedy like a human possibly could is when he sees just how good God is.
There's beauty in the fact that God can take something like death and like even, you know, when we lose loved ones and bring people together, which is really cool. So God is definitely an awesome God, not to put that as an understatement, but
another classic worship song.
Awesome
song. God. Check that one out.
Okay. Well, guys, I need to go. It's
we probably got to call it on that note. You probably got plenty enough material from a lot we talked about.
And if you want to do your coyote story, or do you not want to do it tonight? Okay, I was to say, I got to hear, I love the coyote story. I will sit through every single one. I don't care.
Oh, the coyote story.
The coyote story is the best.
Everybody loves a good coyote story.
One man.
I only know one, though.
Several coyotes. One
night,
bullet.
Early in the morning.
Or early in the morning, yes.
It was cold.
It was cold and crisp.
I was in a tent.
Like a McDonald's Sprite.
Oh.
You were in it? Oh, Savannah was in it. I was like, you were there too?
No, I was not there. I was definitely not there. They were surrounding me. It was just me. I had one shot left.
I know I had one bullet and 8 coyotes. I had to line them up perfectly.
It was pitch black. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face, but I could smell that they had already tasted blood that morning.
My legs broke.
My legs were
broke. To crawl.
I couldn't see. I was blind in my left eye.
I just wish we had a movie picture where it's like one bullet, 8 coyotes, the coyote.
The coyote.
The wild coyote.
By Sandon Wilson.
Sandon, just his face like dramatic and painted.
Single tear coming down.
Single tear, the black from the hunters.
Yep,
it would be
maybe
great.
A little bit of blood.
It would be. I want a shirt, Sandon. If we take off, I want a shirt that's based around that story.
That'd be great.
For sure. We need a shirt.
I feel like with some of the things we talk about, there's some quotes we could stick on some t-shirts. like I'm not even going to say it again. I don't know.
Don't do it.
Feel bad
don't go back.
Yeah, we won't go back.
Don't go
to
back.
Your canceled moments.
Yeah. Yeah, canceled compilation from Matt, Sandon, and Matt.
We need to...
You said what about the gays?
Whoa.
Oh, gosh.
Some of that, in that case, it's time to... Yeah.
Some of that... some stuff that we filmed for the Facebook and everything. We'll have to put together like a blooper reel of all the things we filmed, like the other 3 shots from the chairs that we did and all the takes we took. Like we didn't film a video tonight with the kids. I just thought about that.
Oh no! Wait,
was it the
water one you were wanting to do this time?
That would have been cool.
Well, you're just gonna do a sand, and we can do that one. Oh no! Wait, no, Friday. Is it Friday?
Because I usually post them on Fridays. I might just have to do
Saturday
because there's like a few like there's some that doesn't require like really people being in them, but it's just like invite to try. I might do one of those this week. There is one where you can do like it shows like the rear camera of your car and it looks in there and like somebody has a sign of it that says like join me for church or something, like simple stuff like that.
You can do a simple one like that.
Do something simple. Don't want to use all of our good ideas all one time. Oh
no!
Wow. Well, thank you guys for
joining us. We hope
even though nobody's listening right now.
Nobody's listening.
It's just
staring into space.
Wow. That's like that little thing on Horton Hears a Who. She's like, and it fades off into the bushes.
A strawberry. All right.
I like a strawberry.